And over to you, Samkela.
Lulama, the minister in the presidency, Mondli Kungubele, is here, the SG of the ANC and the national chairperson. I'm just going to combine all three ANC and ministers. Minister in the presidency, you are now going to have a new colleague, the Minister of Electricity, powers that were meant to go to the Minister of Energy.
That is the correct approach, because we've declared a state of disaster, and therefore a president is appointing a minister to be almost like a project manager of the crisis. So that is a correct approach, focused approach to the crisis, resolve it as quick as possible, otherwise load shedding is going to sink all of us.
Minister of the Presidency, how is these modalities going to work, particularly for you, who's already in the Minister of the Presidency, having a new Minister of Electricity? What is going to be the working modality of it in your perspective?
The Minister of Electricity in the President is a Minister of Electricity. I'm a Minister in the Presidency. These two are not the same.
But your conference resolution speaks about energy, ESCOM going to the Minister of Energy, and the Minister of Energy is none other than Samson Gwede Mantashe. Why did the conference resolution not be implemented to the T?
Let me answer this one. You see, you didn't listen to the President. He said the structure of the government is going to be addressed in due course. When that due course arrives, it means they will now allocate ministries, and you will call it a reshuffle, because they will restructure the state and have ministries.
Thank you very much, Minister Mantashe. Minister Kungubele, on the issues particularly of the presidency and the makeup of cabinet, and you are in charge of cabinet and speaking on behalf of cabinet, what can South Africans particularly look forward to in the restructuring of cabinet, having a leaner cabinet and addressing the true issues that the president raised in the State of the Nation address, resolving electricity, water and sanitation, and issues of basic service delivery in municipalities?
Just repeat your question.
How will government going forward in your cabinet meetings and the functioning of government work in eradicating the triple challenges, giving people basic provisions of water, services, electricity, refuse collection, and also having a leaner, mean, and effective cabinet?
Well, the question of how the structure of cabinet is going to be, that question is still in the hands of the president. I think what we're dealing with now is the introduction of a new ministry, and that introduction of a new ministry has got no conflict. It's not going to create any problem with regard to how the cabinet is working, because there's a minister of water. This one is specifically, like Minister Mantashe said, a minister of electricity, specially focused to the crisis as it confronts us now.
But does this not give the president and put the president on the back foot? Because during the July unrest, the president took state security to the president's office, which you are effectively in charge of state security with Deputy Minister Zizi Godwa. Now, electricity, minister in the presidency responsible for electricity. The problem is, why is he not giving the actual functions to true ministers? And if there's a crisis, he moves the various ministries into his office, just like state security and now with electricity.
The electricity minister is a true minister. It's a true minister. It's a minister of electricity for the purpose of dealing with the current crisis. When the president took the Ministry of Security to his space, it's a conventional thing. When you deal with issues of intelligence all over the world, those issues are always close to the head of the state. You can go to America, you can go anywhere. Those matters are close to the head of the state, because the ultimate boss, you can go to the Constitution, by the way. If you read the Constitution, the state security is a purview of the president. He is allowed in the Constitution to delegate anyone, but he's delegating anyone in an area which is specifically meant for himself in terms of the Constitution.
Tomorrow, will we have a minister of potholes?
We don't know.
Thank you.
That we'll cross that bridge when we reach it. We are not dealing with potholes in the manner you are raising issues now, Samkel.
Thank you very much, Minister Kungubele, the minister in the presidency. Over to you, Lulam.
Thank you very much, Samkelo. I am joined by the leader of Al Jamal, Hanif Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, there's many issues that the president has addressed in his speech. Which issues does Al-Jamaa gives them a tick, and which ones does Al-Jamaa say they give them a cross?
The president has unleashed so many government programs that will make South Africa great again. It is now very important for us as members of parliament from our constituency offices to take these programs to villages, to townships all over the country, so people can benefit from it and take their families out of poverty. I particularly like the tendency of the president to move towards a situation where there is full employment for learners. He's starting with TFET colleges, and he is making sure that there's guaranteed employment for them. We hope that that will extend to university students, because too many of them are unemployed. And then also every high school student, he spoke about the fact that people need experience. There should also be full employment for high school students who do not pursue a higher education. So the South Africa is on the road to prosperity. If one examines all these programs of the president and you unpack it, I see that I see a mission, to bring about prosperity in the country. So this must be one of the best State of the Nation addresses I've ever heard, even before I came to Parliament, giving a lot of hope, especially to young people, and to take people out of poverty.
Thank you very much. That was the leader of Al-Jamaa, Hanif Hendricks. Let me hand over to Samkelo.
Well, Lulama, Al-Jamaa says it's the best ever State of the Nation address. As ANC Treasurer General Dr. Ramaphosa, are you now fully in allegiance with Al-Jamaa, with them praising you so much in the State of the Nation address? You've created a new ministry, Minister of Electricity in the President's office. You are looking at expediting the issue of electricity, effectively taking away coal-powered stations from the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan.
Thank you very much, and good evening to viewers. Indeed, this State of the Nation address focuses on the South African citizen and our nation. It is very clear that indeed we are a resilient nation that is tenacious, and that if we work together, we have overcome a lot, and that if we continue working together, we can actually create this hope and indeed overcome the challenges that we are facing. The President was very clear on outlining the impact of the energy crisis that the country is facing at the economic and social level, and the measures that he has announced, including also declaring the state of national disaster, are measures that shows that he is decisive to ensure that the plan he unfolded is fast-tracked, and that indeed the announcement of the Minister of Energy will assist to ensure that there are urgent interventions, extraordinary steps taken to end load shedding and to give the country energy security, both for the economy and also for households and also small traders. Many have really suffered. However, the President also outlined concrete areas of progress. That is a glimmer of hope that indeed the country is rising out of the recession, the COVID pandemic impact, and so forth and so forth, the natural disasters, the July 21, that we are, but we need to work together to ensure that this is much more impactful and much more sustained.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramaphosa. Before I throw to my colleague Lulama, just to get the response of the Good Party, whom we have been keeping waiting, Mr. Brett, just your response as the Good Party.
Well, I think the President addressed the electricity crisis, and that was unavoidable. He had to address it. I think it is a good idea that he sticks with the plan that he announced in July last year. As difficult as it is, we don't need to keep reinventing new plans. We need to implement the plans that are there. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, he didn't address the slippage in implementing that plan. If you will recall that in July last year, he announced that we would procure 5,200 megawatts of additional power in bid window 6. Bid window 6 ultimately only procured 820 megawatts. So there's already been some slippage in the plan. It would have been good to hear why that slippage occurred, but it is a good idea that we stick with the plan. I think the announcement of a state of disaster is really an announcement for appearances of urgency, but there's nothing really in the disaster legislation that will assist us to move our energy crisis forward in a way that solves it, that cannot be achieved with existing legislation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brett. From the Good Party, over to you, Lulama.
Thank you very much, Samkele. I am joined by the COSATU President, Zingisa Losi. Ma'am, during the President's speech, as the representative of the working class, what issues that the President you think have said that are talking to the working class?
Thank you so much. Firstly, the issue that for us is the cement of everything, is the issue of dealing with the energy crisis in our country. The fact that the President has declared a state of national disaster, and not only end there, but also say that the intention of declaring the state of disaster is to address the energy crisis in our country because of the challenges that it posed to workers, to the working class and business community. And we think that in the absence of being firm on that and addressing that matter, the rest of other issues, you would not be able to deal with them, because energy begins to stop everything. You would not have investments that are coming in domestically and international investments, but also workers will be losing employment. It affects our health system, it affects education system. So we think that part is very, very important for us. Also, the fact that also the President has touched on the issue of the extension of the social relief distress grants, which we have been calling for. And not only that, but also in terms of skills development that the working people should acquire in order to drive the economy, but not only as employees, but also as entrepreneurs. We think for us, those are amongst other issues that are critical in terms of what the President have raised. Where we do not understand what is the meaning of it is the ministry that the President said he has created in his office, the Ministry of Electricity. We think we need more engagement on that because we did not see that one coming. What we had expected of the President to speak on that matter was that the calls that have been made to collapse the Department of Public Enterprise and ensure that those entities report or under the direct ministries. This is what we expected, but the President announced a complete shift to what South Africans largely had thought that the President would be announcing. We really are not quite sure of what that ministry will be doing. Is it just a ministry for the period of the national disaster until we're off this crisis? Is that a realignment and alignment of his cabinet? We are not quite sure what to make of it. But we think we need to have more engagements for us to really understand what is the real purpose behind it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was the COSATU President, Zingisa Losi. Samkele, over to you.
Lulama, the issue of criminality, the issue of justice within the country is very high. I'm going to bring in the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Minister Lamula. The issues of state capture, the President dealt with them extensively, thanking Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who was the Deputy Chief Justice and Chair of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, as the Department of Correctional Services and Law and Justice within the country. How far are you with the issues pertaining to those whom were alleged to be at the heart of state capture, now effectively being criminally charged?
Yeah, as you are aware, that is in the hands of the investigative directorate, and from time to time when they make arrests or they make progress, they make announcements, and we are happy with the work that they are doing. Hence the president, as he said here, we continue to give them support, not only moral but also in terms of the resources that the institution needs, including the issues related to forensic investigations, digital and money wiring, fraud and so forth, and also help in terms of international jurisdictions where they also have to do some work that relates to the international jurisdiction. So we continue to give them the support and to ensure that the recommendations of the Commission are implemented.
You spoke a while back last year and said that the Guptas have been arrested in the UAE, in Dubai specifically, and they were in the process of being extradited to South Africa. Are the Guptas still behind bars in Dubai, and when are they landing into the country to face their crimes?
Yes, they are still behind bars, and we are awaiting a court date from the UAE authorities for a date which will then the court decide whether they are extraditable back to South Africa or not. And we believe we have complied with all the requirements in terms of the treaty and the obligations between us and the UAE. And we believe that once a decision is made, a favorable decision to extradite them back to South Africa will be made because of the good mutual relations that we enjoy with the state of the UAE.
Thank you, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services within the country, Ronald Lamula, speaking about the Guptas, whom are implicated and embroiled in allegations of state capture and corruption. Lulama.
Thank you very much, Samkele. I am joined by the Minister of Communications, Kumbuzo Nchabeni. Ma'am, you must be happiest when the President was saying that people in rural areas will now have better connectivity so that they can, like as if they are in urban areas when they are communicating.
It's not being happiest, it means hard work continues. We are going to embark on the SA Connect program to roll out 5G and 4G to rural areas to make sure that all South Africans have access to internet connectivity by 2024.
The country has been missing the deadline to switch off, but now things are happening.
Yes, we are going to switch off. We closed the consultation process on the 27th of January, and now we are responding to 3 objections that we received. We are responding to them to give them our view of what they've proposed or what they are arguing, and then we will then gazette the analog switch-off date.
And ma'am, lastly, when we're talking about this switching off, what is the benefit of people? Because some people can really not afford your high technology. What does the government do to give more access to people who cannot afford?
Now, we went out for a number of years, like the President has indicated. The first deadline was 2010. We went out and said those who cannot afford, they must apply for government assistance. And people applied, some did not apply. The Concord said we must extend the application period to give people their last and final opportunity. We did that, and we closed on the 30th of September. And this is the number that we are finishing to migrate out. And we also accept that there will be those who are doubting Thomas's, and if they have not applied, they'll be ready. It will be available for them to apply later, but we have to switch off. Because when we switch off, that's when we release the spectrum that will enable us to do 4G and 5G connectivity, including into our rural areas. I'm sure all of you are suffering from internet connectivity challenges that we have in the country, and it's important that when the world is going digital, when you now go to school through technology, when you now access healthcare through technology, when you now work from home through technology, when you now run your small business or any business from your home through technology, even people in rural areas are entitled to that, those who do not have access. So we need to release the spectrum so that all South Africans can have access to internet and they can be able to participate in the economy meaningfully. And I do not want to go without talking about the Post Bank. The Post Bank, yes, we are ready. We are finalizing to make sure that the Post Bank is licensed and corporatized in line with the timelines that we've been given by the Reserve Bank with the extension that they gave us in December. And we are, when Parliament concludes the bill, which is now in the House, it has passed the Portfolio Committee process, the President will be ready to assent, and we are finalizing our process so that we can corporatize the Post Bank and then get the license and also then roll out the State Bank of South Africa Africa to mitigate the exclusion of our people from financial services.
And the big question that South Africans are waiting for is when the SABC board will be appointed.
Oh, unfortunately, I don't appoint the SABC board.
What's the latest?
You know, the president is interacting with Parliament in terms of the processes of appointing the SABC board. But in terms of the law, the Group CEO of the SABC has been designated by the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies with the concurrence of the Minister of Finance as the board of the SABC.
Thank you very much, ma'am. With that, let me hand it over to Samkele.
Naledi, on an international front, you heard the president speaking about finally silencing of the guns in between Palestine and Israel, resolving that particular crisis within the Middle East, and also sending South Africa's condolences to Turkey that has faced that particular earthquake. Minister, on an international front, the president spoke extensively about the Middle East, spoke about South Africa's international relations and cooperations with other countries, treaties, but also condolences to the earthquake that took place within Turkey. Just your response as the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, which fosters South Africa's relationships with other nations.
Well, you would recall, and thank you for this opportunity. Good evening to all the SABC viewers. You will recall that just 3 weeks ago I hosted the Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it's so tragic that after that wonderful visit we now have this great tragedy in Turkey, and we shouldn't forget in Syria as well. It's something that troubles us deeply, and I think we're really grateful to the gift of the givers for showing that South Africans are available to assist those who are experiencing great harm and suffering. And I hope we as South Africans will make even more contributions toward a gift of the givers so that they continue to provide mercy and support to those who experience the kind of tragedy that we've seen with this earthquake.
Minister, on the issues of electricity, particularly with South Africa's working relationships with independent power producers in the renewable energy space, particularly Aqua Power in Saudi Arabia, how far are those international arrangements and agreements with the Saudi Arabian government to assist South Africa in eradicating our power crisis in those intense private negotiations you were involved in Saudi Arabia?
Well, those would be something that the relevant ministers would speak to in detail. All I would say is that there's great interest in the energy opportunities available in South Africa. Now that South Africa has confirmed to the world that it is seeking a diverse mix of energy sources, I think you're going to see more and more private sector players as well as innovators approaching South Africa to express an interest in providing energy to our country. So we're looking forward to an end eventually to these power outages, which are most annoying to everyone. Despite the view people have that we as ministers have generators, we don't always have generators, and we do experience this terrible outage, and I would want to see this problem solved, and I believe the President has set out a path for addressing the problem that we have. I believe the declaration of the electricity crisis as a state of disaster allows government to take urgent steps immediately to begin to remedy the situation.
Thank you very much, Minister Naledi Pandor of International Relations. Over to you, Lulama.
Thank you very much, Samkele. I am joined by the SACP General Secretary, Soli Mapaila. Mr. Mapaila, what issues as the SACP that you're taking home from the President's speech, and those that you feel there's nothing to write home about?
Fundamentally is that the President responded to the main challenges facing our society. The problem of load shedding. There seems to be a concrete plan emerging. We are happy about it. Like he said, better late than never. We called last year for declaration of disaster in the energy sector, and he has now done it. We've also liked the message about the emphasis on fighting crime in our communities and fighting unemployment, as well as increasing the social distress grant for the poor. We hope that it can better articulate the fact that this social distress of grant for the poor must be the basis upon which we can build a universal income grant for all South Africans, and also qualify the right to work campaigns for all our people. So that it's not just left to chance, but also we like the approach towards creating the state bank, and he gave a clear direction about the post office, so he has made that particular nomination. So we'll now see the outline by the Minister of Finance on the implementation. Overall, we think that we are happy with the main focus of the task that he expressed here today, and we hope that there will be speedy implementation of the issues that he raised, and they can remove unnecessary red tape and unnecessary regulation that have prohibited quicker implementation of decisions, because the country is generally in crisis. He has pointed to all critical questions, the questions of inflation, for instance, but on the one hand, the Reserve Bank is increasing interest rates. So therefore, there must be a correlation about what the President says in his State of the Nation address and what the institutions of state and those supporting democracy, particularly in the economic sector that deals with the microeconomic strategy of our country, like the Reserve Bank, how they respond to this kind of issues. So you can have a crisis of inflation that is increasing food prices and energy crisis, and yet the Reserve Bank increases interest rates, which then punishes the poor who cannot afford life itself. So in this regard, we are happy with the general gist of the speech.
On corruption, he also spoke about corruption and crime. He also spoke about strengthening NPA as well as the courts to deal with matters of crime and increasing police visibility. As the SABC, you're always vocal about corruption. Are you happy with what he has said?
We are happy with funding, particularly for institutions that are going to fight corruption, because one of the problems has been the ability for this institution to have resources to tackle corruption, because particularly organized crime, which is literally driven by big corporates that corrupt particularly role players in the public sector. They litigate government, prolong a process of prosecution, and the focus on specific skills in the prosecutorial section, as well as in the investigation capacity within the MPA, will come much more handy to deal with these issues, as well as the number of police personnel who will take to the streets to fight crime in our communities. We have already taken initiative as a Communist Party in our own communities to work with communities to fight against crime. So we think these interventions will come in handy for collaboration between the communities as well as the SAPS in the fight against crime, and all of society to fight against crime. Of course, the campaign that we launched as well as the Communist Party, which was articulated better by the President, against destruction of public infrastructure. We are happy that ultimately government can see the problems that we've been articulating over the years. And all these specialized units that the President has identified, we hope and we believe that the ministers must accelerate implementation.
Thank you very much. Let's leave it at that, and over to you, Samkel.
Lulama, just on the issues of criminality within the country, we have Minister Pegicele, whom was responsible for those 10,000 police recruits. Minister, crime is over the rooftops in South Africa. Your immediate tasks in combating crime, criminality, and gender-based violence?
Well, President put 6 pillars on his speech, if you were listening: the employment, the electricity, the international crime itself, and other things, 6 of them. Those things, if they're done properly, they will help very much to reduce the crime, especially the social cohesion and things like employment. But coming back to the crime per se, President also put things on the table that we are doing as we speak. One of those things is our work dealing with the sabotage in the ESCOM. We are doing very well there. We have a special task team that is dealing with that. We have arrested quite several people already on sabotaging. But also, what we have been raising all the time is that the police have gone too thin on the ground. In the year 2010, we had 196,000 police with 50 million South Africans. Now we've got 176
with 63 million South Africans. If we get this 20 starting from last year and next year, we'll make only the number of 2010. We're not close to 2023. We hope that we'll be getting more figures going forward. Why so? Because the visibility, it just helps to reduce crime. When you go to countries, especially in Asia and China, every corner will find the police, and then criminals would not really go on with their activities. But also, it gives us the pool to train the special units that the president was talking about, including the unit that you saw at the platform where the president was working. You will only do that when everybody goes for the basic training and you begin to recruit. We are very thankful. We hope that it will take us somewhere to fight crime, especially on what you have raised, the GBV, and that's a unit that we need to increase. We have about 113 units of that at the present moment. We'd love to have that every station, 1,158 stations in the country, have that unit so that we are able to respond quick to those that are vulnerable.
The leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, claims that he sent a message from intelligence within the police service that there would be an assassination attempt against him here at the State of the Nation address, and he sent it to your deputy, that would be Castle Matale. Any credence to these allegations?
Well, I don't know. The first one was from me to them about the DSG. This one is from them to Deputy Minister. I was with the Deputy Minister almost the whole day today. That did not come to me. But the information I've explained, that by the killing or the murder of the SG of the AFF, that information I don't have it. I had the information of the rising of the political violence in the province, of which we are taking measures to work with political parties. But this one, I didn't have it. I could not have conveyed the information to you that I don't have about you. But that information is on the platform now. It will be investigating, nothing that will take light. If this one comes to me again, that will be assassination here. I don't know why the assassination will be here when there will be the police, and why would people choose this place? And but that information is new for me. It comes from you for the first time.
Thank you very much, Minister Peggy Icele Bongiwe. The EFF claiming political assassinations on the president of the EFF, Julius Malema, also saying Peggy Icele said there would be an attempt on the life of Marshal Dlamini, inspired by senior IFP leaders. Just the history of political assassinations and how it's easy for politicians to just brand it around nowadays boggles my mind.